any good poems from high school? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Everyone is a terrible poet in high school.
Yes.
We haven't found one yet from mine, so. Rhyme or free, it doesn't matter to me. It's my bad poetry. Good day, and welcome to My Bad Poetry, a podcast that Dave and I started with the intent of finding grace and good conversation in the utter garbage that was and is my poetry. We still do that, but more importantly, others have volunteered to join the conversation as well and share their bad poetry with us. And today is one of those days. Shiksha Dheda is a writer, engineer, and human? Her debut collection of poems, Washed Away, published in 2021, has been praised for its unflinching and vulnerable look at a life with OCD and depression. The book is available on Amazon, and she has recently finished a video series of all 51 poems being read aloud, which you can find on her website. A place which led me to another interview where I learned that you have a dog named Einstein. Shiksha, we are thrilled to have you on the show.
Well, thank you very much. I am very happy to be here and subject other people to my bad poetry. And yes, that interview answered very important questions like, do I prefer dogs or cats? Do I prefer waffles or pancakes? Very, very important questions. So thank you for checking that out. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed answering those questions. So yeah.
Those are really the core of life questions, waffles
Exactly.
versus
Waffles, pancakes. People don't discuss that enough, So
I always go for pancakes, and yet I think theoretically waffles are better because they have the wells to hold the syrup.
Exactly. I am always team waffle, and I think I read somewhere they said that waffles are pancakes with abs. So I mean, that's basically getting cardio in, right? When I'm eating waffles. That's basically it.
That counts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything in the introduction that I may have missed that you want our listeners to know or be aware of?
No, except that I do prefer dogs over cats. So
yes, well,
nothing else.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. What kind of dog is it's a Siberian Husky, right?
Yes, he is a Siberian Husky with ice blue eyes and a very mischievous demeanor. So, yes.
Oh, I love Huskies. They're just beautiful dogs.
They have this very unique personality. It's like basically living with another person, basically. And they love singing. They do love singing. So
Meanwhile, Dave and I, while we love big dogs, we both have teeny tiny little
Yeah.
What are they, like Chihuahuas or like Pomeranians? Or I'm not too familiar with smaller dogs, so
I have a miniature golden doodle. So it's a golden retriever and a poodle. And
so interesting.
Yeah, he's a big pain, but I love him.
And then I have a Yorkshire Terrier who we're pretty sure has a bit of Chihuahua in her.
Yeah.
But she is the shyest, frankly dumbest dog I've ever known. but we love her to death. I mean, she's phenomenal.
Wow.
Well, to get us into the realm of poetry, Dave typically graces us with something that he has written basically on the spot. So Dave, do you have anything for us today?
I do.
Yay.
This poem really, well, I'm not going to call it a poem, but this writing fits with our conversation because I have some allergies. Ooh. And that's what this poem is about.
Okay.
Here it is. Throbbing with pain in the prefrontal cortex, every year the exact same scene. Could it be looming death in a complex? Thank all that is good for loratadine. Histamine, you have no power here. Migraine, be gone, this I opined. Hypochondriasis, there is nothing to fear. Clear is the day in my mind.
I thought that was good. So
You
You
know,
are very kind.
that was impressive, Dave.
I also enjoyed the fervor it was read with. I think that was a full-on 10-10 performance.
Oh, well,
So
thank you,
yes.
thank you. I feel like you're being kind to me like Aaron is kind to his dumb dog.
No, not at all. I actually enjoyed that. Maybe they should put that in the leaflets of, the medications. They should
Oh,
put
yeah.
like a small poem.
Yeah.
We have a business idea working.
Yes. I mean, really, it would be just as good as some of those commercials with like the animated people and the bees, or I mean, it's just.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Shiksha, how do you feel following up those words?
Oh wow, no, I think that should be moved off the section of bad poetry now. Like I have genuinely bad ones, like genuinely bad teenage poems. So
Yeah. After being volunteered by another person on Twitter to be on the show, you said that you would be interested in forcing people to
yes.
listen to your bad poetry, and Dave and I are more than happy to oblige. So, what have you brought for us today?
Well, I found three very cringy poems. I mean, I mean, in retrospect, when I thought about them, I was like, no, this reflects a lot on my state at the time, but as a poem, it's really cringy. So
Yeah, so you have here a setting sun.
yes. And before I start reading, imagine somebody who is so tortured, they feel that nobody has felt, this way before.
Mm-hmm.
That this is, think of your cliche tortured artist. This was the impression I had of myself at like 16. So
Right.
Perfect.
Okay, let's go.
Yes.
A setting sun. I'm the confusing hum to which there are no words, the smile from which no happiness can be derived, the nameless body in a crowded morgue, the impudent child who knows no compassion, and the setting sun which can provide no warmth. Why then do you love me? The hum which I can derive inspiration to sing once more, the smile which is the teacher and the beginning to all that is finite, simple, and good, the body which the soul kisses last before farewell, the child which is determined and opinionated, and the light that gives direction to the lost lonely traveler, are you. How then can I not love you, but insanely? For you exist, therefore I exist. Yep.
I will say I am lost in these words. I need some direction as a lonely traveler.
Yeah, we need the setting sun.
Dave, what are your first impressions?
I love Pablo Neruda's poetry, but he wrote in Spanish, and I have a very, very passing understanding of Spanish. And I got a book of Pablo Neruda's poetry that I think is one of the worst translations of his stuff that I've ever read. But the last line, "For you exist, therefore I exist," reminds me a lot of I don't remember the number, but the "so close that your hand on my chest is my hand."
Oh yes, I actually know which poem you're talking about. Yes.
It's a beautiful poem, but it just reminded me of that. But yeah, not exactly as poetic.
Yeah. Also, there's many cliched metaphors in this, especially the crowded, what is it? Nameless body in a crowded morgue. I even rolled my eyes when I wrote that one. I was like,
a nameless. Yeah. Dave, I thought you were almost going to say that this poem is like a badly translated.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should, how some lit mags have translations. Maybe I should be like, this is the translated version.
So you gave us a little bit of the context here. A 16-year-old's tortured artist. I can hear that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm very curious. there's questions around why then do you love me, and then there's how then can I not love you? Are you comfortable pulling back the curtain a bit on who this is about, what this is about, or
The ironic thing is that it's not about a particular person. The poem kind of
oh.
asks a question and then answers it. So when I thought about this, I was like, it kind of was me trying to find sort of good in a bad situation, but not necessarily in an optimistic, uplifting way, more in a sense of a toxic kind of way. Me like saying, I am in this bad space or I feel misunderstood. And this somehow elevates me from people who don't understand me. So it was kind of like being like 16, like no one's felt this way before. I will find the answers. I know the answers, nobody understands that I'm so deep. Nobody has felt this emotion. So I will ask the question and answer it myself. So it's like, I think it's more that of feeling that you are misunderstood. So you kind of, in being misunderstood, it elevates you. It's a very small way of thinking, because as you get
Mm.
older, you realize that everybody feels misunderstood at some point, and everybody is looking for the answer, and everybody does feel emotions to pretty much the same extent a lot of the time, just they express it very differently. So I think that's where it comes from. It's not about a particular person or scenario, it's just in general. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, I loved that. Dave, this reminds me way back, I think episode 2 or 3, when we didn't know at all what we were doing. You talked about exactly that concept of what if artists actually like sought therapy. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah. We had that idea around like, the tortured artist, and
Yeah,
everybody feels like they have to be tortured to create great art. But like,
yeah.
what if Vincent van Gogh, rather than, you know, turning towards drugs and all of these other things,
Went to
sought a
therapy.
therapist?
It's very interesting because I feel like this artist trope exists in people's minds, because I come from a family where everyone has like, they're very STEM focused. So I know whenever we'd watch like movies about artists or writers, my mother would be like, yeah, we don't understand these people. They are artsy types. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, they just expressing themselves differently. She's like, no, no, we don't. You can't live with an artist. You can't understand artsy types. They're just so different. I'm like, I don't think so. But yeah, so yeah, I feel like that exists still. Like that
Mm-hmm.
stereotype exists, not just in the people who feel like that, but in the people around them. They're like, oh, so mysterious. Art, words, writing, poetry. Wow.
Yeah, and just like you said, a 16-year-old struggling with feeling misunderstood, one coping mechanism is elevating yourself to that, like, well, then
Exactly.
I am the artist. And I love how you said
Exactly.
that's the toxic solution, the small-minded thinking, but it's the trope that we all go to. I mean, or not all of us, but yeah, some.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but I actually am like, I'm better.
Of course, Dave. Undoubtedly.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was actually just gonna say that even as we age, I feel like when we suffer something, even if it's objectively bad, I feel like some part of us, I mean, besides sometimes looking for a reason to why we have to suffer this way, some part of us thinks maybe it will make us better, or maybe I have been given this suffering because I have a
Hmm.
greater capacity for it, and maybe that makes me better. I mean, that's where the whole saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger,
Yes.
comes from. So I feel like when you're a teenager, it comes out as being very angsty, very aggressive. But I feel like even as we age, some part of us does think that, like, even if we don't want to, I feel like people think, well, you're suffering because maybe you can handle it, or someone will say you're such a strong person, you're the strongest person I know, but that person might not be dealing with it really. So I feel like that's linked somewhere as well. It just comes out differently when you were a teenager, I guess.
Yeah, I think we always try and find ways to justify the difficulty that we face,
Yeah.
um, even when that can be unbelievably harmful. Uh,
Hmm.
I, Aaron and I are pretty open about the fact that we've both struggled with depression, and it
Yeah.
took me a long time to find the fact that I needed a therapist and that I needed to be on medication to live a full life. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that was a big breakthrough for me. The fact that no, my brain just doesn't work the way that others expect it to. Like it's just not.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
Yeah, it just doesn't produce the right chemicals, and so I can find a way to make it produce the right chemicals, and I don't have to live with this same burden, and it's not
Yeah.
this gift that some people talk about it as.
I was actually thinking that part of the reason why, when I was looking at some of my writing when I was younger, and there's this sort of preachy, sort of elevated, sort of undertone to it, I was like, I feel that a big portion of that was me not wanting to acknowledge that I wasn't mentally well. I felt like it
Mm.
was a failure. I felt like if I told people that this is how I feel, then I'd be failing in some way, instead of just saying, this is what I'm dealing with, and I need help. But instead, when you're young, you're like, "Ugh, it's a failure. I don't want to admit it. I don't want to ask for help, so let me preach about how this has elevated me." So I think something that despite us trying to make mental health and the awareness around mental illness, I think there is still unsaid sort of stigma attached to it, in the sense that you feel I failed. Like, even
Yeah.
sometimes now on a daily basis, despite being so vocal about my mental problems, when I can't do certain things, I feel less than. I feel like I have failed, even though I can't do it. I just feel I mean, I wouldn't think that if I had hurt my leg and I couldn't pick something up, but because I have a mental problem, and sometimes I feel like, am I making it worse than what it is? Because you
Mm.
feel like you're in control, even though you're not. So I think that's where a lot of that sort of preachy, elevated undertone comes from, because you feel like this is better than saying that, I may have failed, or I may need help, or. So yeah, I completely get that.
Yeah. So to bring it back to the awful poem,
Yes.
I've tried to see if maybe we can find that in your confusing hum that's introduced in, is this the first, yeah, the first stanza,
The first stanza.
and then you bring the hum back as the hum which I can derive inspiration to sing once more, the smile which is the teacher, and earlier it was the smile with no happiness. So, trying to give your 16-year-old the benefit of the doubt, is that the kind of turn that we're talking about, where you feel that you are going alone, you feel that you are misunderstood, and yet you find meaning within that hum?
I feel like it is, like, I think the first part is asking the questions and sort of giving the situation on face value. And then the second part is answering what could be good in that. So I guess if you think about it from that 16-year-old lens, it would be me saying, I feel misunderstood. But now I feel like it has caused me to create art, I guess.
Hmm.
Or, I mean, that might tie in a bit with the sort of preachy, elevated sense. But I think if you think about it later on, I do think when you do feel like you are struggling with mental health, it does make you more empathetic in some extent. It does allow you to see perspectives which aren't your own. So I think basically the piece was just saying, it was trying to find good in what is bad, basically. So yeah, the very cliched, verbose way of doing that. But yeah,
I don't remember where this comes from, but someone at some point said cliches are a cliche for a reason. Like there's
yeah,
something to
exactly.
them, and I think cliches can be useful. So yeah, there are a good amount of cliches in here, but I think that that's something that a lot of people can connect to. You know, it's kind of a way that we can connect to each other even if we haven't had the same experiences, we can
Yeah.
experience those cliches in a similar way.
And I will say, comparing this kind of what you would call preachy poem from a 16-year-old
Yeah.
self to some of the garbage that we have read out of my wolf journal, you already had a much better poetic flair. And I think almost, I mean, just a greater nuance than, say, a poem where I state, I know the truth.
I mean, fair, I guess.
Yeah, if you're talking about being preachy, you have not heard Aaron's poetry.
There's some beautiful imagery in here. The body which the soul kisses last before farewell. Not quite sure what it means, but it is an image that that makes you think.
Yeah. I think that was supposed to be sort of the good to the nameless body in the morgue. Like each line is sort of each metaphor kind of counteracts the metaphor in the top half. So I think that was the good in being a nameless body in the morgue. I don't know, but
yes, yeah.
That parallelism or like a chiasm of sorts.
Yeah, exactly that. I think that was what I was trying to achieve. So
very
cool.
I get the sense that even in your more recent work, you like structure from time to time. There are other poems you do basically kind of a jumbled word art, which I find that's fascinating as well. But in your book, you use a lot of shape imagery. The fruits of the tree is one that stands out to me. But do you remember as a 16-year-old, were you considering that structure with most of your writing, or was this kind of a experimental style you were doing here?
To be honest, like I don't actually know much about sort of poetic form. Like I have no formal sort of thing in it. So last year, I actually only started submitting my writing last year in January. And I revisited some of my older works. So some of them was The Lotus, Fruits of the Tree. A lot of the shape poems were older pieces. And I felt that it was lacking something. I felt that what way could I change this free verse poem into better convey or express what I wanted to say? And I thought maybe making it into a shape poem. So that was just a by chance thing. It wasn't something that I had intended when I wrote the poem. I was like, I feel like this needs to be more expressive. Like even with the Fruits of the Tree poem, it was a normal free verse poem. And then I thought, I feel like it's lacking something. And when I put it into the shape of a tree, I was like, no, I feel like this is more how I had subconsciously envisioned it. So no, it wasn't at all planned. It was just kind of I'll see if this works. In fact, my whole process of writing from the time of submitting has been kind of throwing spaghetti against a wall and hoping something sticks. That has been this whole process for me. Everything is new, everything is strange. Even when the collection got published, I was shocked. Everything has just been sort of a surprise to me. So yeah, there's no intention. It just kind of happens. I don't know. Yeah.
So this one that I dogged here, Deadly Companion, it just so happened to have OCD.
Yes, it just did.
Just by chance.
Yeah, I was like, hey, maybe. No, actually what happened with that one, if I remember, was that I wrote the first verse and I was like, it starts with an O. And then I'm like, maybe I could do something else with it. So it's not like by having no intention, it means more that I don't really necessarily envision it from the onset. But while I'm writing it, I sort of develop the idea as I go along. So
very cool. Very cool.
Nice.
Well, I think you submitted for us two more.
Yes.
Dave, do you want to pick between Answers and Gray Palette?
Yeah, those are the two.
I would select Gray Palette. if
Oh,
given
I actually
choice.
thought you were going to choose answers because it was less, like it's shorter. You have to listen to it less.
Oh no.
So
Oh no.
okay, there's actually a lot of color imagery here. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Gray palette, such luminosity, blinding bright color, irrefutable magnificence, fiery reds, playful pinks, distinguished blues, infinite blacks, childish yellows, persistent oranges, forgotten whites, perfect purples, may all try to overwhelm the unnoticed hues of the gentle gray, but it burns on, in the midst of it all, forever looking, forever searching for a less temperamental home than the hearth of color. Can you see the preachy undertone?
I
love
honestly
this.
really like this one. I really like it.
Okay.
Okay. So first impression, we both love it. Tell us where you hear the preachy undertone.
Let me choose. It's just like made all try to overwhelm. It's because maybe I'm finding it preachy because okay, to unpack this poem, there will be a lot. Let me start.
Okay.
So I have this thing, for lack of a better word, where when I get to know someone, I associate a color with them. And
Oh.
then I associate that color with a characteristic that stands out. So if you see there's a adjective for each color, like fiery red, playful pink. So it's almost like I mentally group people that I know into groups of colors, and those all have a standout quality. And
Yeah.
I would then give myself the color gray. And as you can see, it's saying these colors are trying to overwhelm the gray palette. So for me, it seems preachy because I'm speaking about myself. But I guess an objective reader may not pick that up if they don't know all of this background. So yeah.
That's really cool.
That is really fascinating.
So this was still written from a 16-year-old self?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to even go and ask my friends, I'd be like, what color do you think I am? And then they'd be like, you're definitely a red. And I was like, oh God, no, I'm not a red.
You don't understand.
I'll be like, I'm not red. And then someone's like, no, you're definitely a dark green. I was like, it's a bit better than red. But no.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like this weird hierarchy. Well, I wouldn't call it a hierarchy. It's a grouping system that I have made. Even when I read like books and stuff, I'd be like, I wonder what color this character is. And it's very confusing if someone doesn't know, because I'll be like, this person is definitely white, and then they're like, you do know that that's a person of color. Like, I'm like, no, that's, I mean white, not like white. And then they're like,
Right.
Oh. This is making me think. Dave and I both have a favorite author named Jasper Fforde.
I'm not familiar, yeah.
Okay, well, no one is.
Yeah, he's not a very popular author.
But he has a book. Now, keep in mind, this was written way before the BDSM.
Yeah.
The 50 Shades of Grey. There is a book out from Jasper Fforde called Shades of Grey.
Okay.
It's all about people who can only see certain colors.
Oh, okay.
And they actually are classed by the colors that they see. And you might love this book, actually.
Yeah, I might.
Yeah, I mean, Jasper Fforde, brilliant satirist, and Shades of Grey is one of his earlier works, but it is really cool, and he's just now working on a sequel.
Oh, so now's the time I should get in.
Yeah.
Now.
But that's what comes to mind as you're explaining kind of your thought process, and then the many hues of gray. It almost makes me want to go back to that book. It's been years.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing, Aaron. And then I was also thinking about The Giver by Lois Lowry.
Oh, sure.
About people who live in a futuristic society who can only see gray, and one person who like has the memories of all the other people and
all the other colors. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's in the American education system. Yeah. Most middle schools, high schools, you have to read The Giver. I don't know why, but that's one that's just made it in. Yeah.
It's a good book.
It is a good book. And so is this poem. I mean,
yeah. I was just going to say, I like that, like, looking from the outside, not having the context, there's a lot of beauty in the ideas of the different nature of these colors and, like, the world that it creates. But then at the same time, with the context of you considering yourself to be gray in this world, it feels like a really interesting autobiography of who you are and how you see the world or saw the world, depending on where you see yourself now. But I think it's just kind of fascinating. Like, I honestly think it's a good poem.
Okay. That's unexpected.
Yeah, when you first started with the list of colors, I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty generic. You're just like, but then kind of the unnoticed hues of gentle gray. My mind's on this because last week I had to do a little cover. Dave and I could not record together, and so I grabbed this poem about finding fairies, just like finding the little magic in the everyday. And that's really kind of stuck with me this week. And that's what I was hearing here as well, as kind of finding the beauty in just the gentle hues of gray. We tend to downplay what is considered not colorful.
Yeah. Well, that's very unexpected. So I'm glad we went with this one and not answers. Yeah, and I can really like take this whole color scheme in my head pretty far, because I know the 1 year I gave my entire family mugs with their names on it and then the color that I associate with them, and like half of them didn't agree with it.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I was like, yeah, these are mugs with your name on, and then like my father was like, why is it this color? And my mother was like, yeah, I don't like this color. I'm like, well, that's awkward because that's your color. And she's like, what?
That's who you are.
That's who you are. What do you mean? Everybody knows.
I had a friend in college who had a form of what is it called? Synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Where pitch created a color for her.
Oh, okay.
And so she had perfect pitch in that sense, in that if she knew she needed to sing an A or whatever, she'd just find that orange or what I mean.
Oh, okay.
So if she concentrated really hard, people tend to talk at certain pitches, and she would tell you the color that you spoke, the kind of pitched color. So that's kind of what your story is making me think of, is like you're finding that hue of a person.
Well, I've actually been asked that. Like, people have asked me, they're like, oh, do you have this? And I'm like, I don't think so. It's just a color thing. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, no. I have enough disorders at this point. I
don't need a pile of on.
Yeah, they don't need friends, so it's fine.
Well, I wish we had more we could just like pick apart from this, but you even have some lovely alliteration in there. Although Dave would disagree. Okay, we need your opinion on this. I think that alliteration can just be two in a row. Dave insists that it needs at least 3.
I have to go with Dave on this one.
Really?
I think it needs at least 3, yes.
Yes.
I think it needs at least 3.
Oh, I thought I had an ally here, because you had playful pinks and perfect purples.
No, I actually think it needs 3.
Oh.
Yes, thank you.
Well, then this poem is garbage.
Well, okay.
Aaron turns very quickly on people.
You even have gentle gray. Maybe your 16-year-old self would have agreed with me.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, who needs rules, I would have said.
There you go. Oh, nice.
I also think it's funny. We're looking at this on a Google Doc where it's saying that color is misspelled.
Wait, which color is misspelled?
The word color.
Yeah.
You're using
Oh no.
the British English.
Oh yeah,
So
but we use British English in
Yeah.
South Africa, so
I know.
that's right for us.
I'm just looking at these red squiggles and I'm like, there's nothing
Oh.
wrong with this.
Right.
Well, I mean, not spelling wise. I mean, the other things, but yeah. What would you say if you had to think about what color would you associate with yourself?
Ooh. And then are you gonna tell us if you've kind of given us a color?
No, I
Okay.
actually think it's a bit too soon. I think it's a bit too soon for that. I
Okay,
think
fair
I
enough,
really
fair
have to
enough.
know people. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe I'm just defaulting to kind of my favorite color, but I would say that
Yeah.
my favorite color would be because I kind of see myself as thriving within that. I would
That's
kind of
fair.
say like a bright navy blue.
Hmm. Interesting. That's a nice color though, also.
Dave, you looked befuddled.
Yeah,
He's like, okay.
So-
Okay.
Aaron, and I had always pictured you as like a muddled yellow.
a murky brown.
Murky
or-
brown. That's
Smoky
it.
brown.
No, I honestly like this is just kind of a fascinating thing because I have like no association here, and
Really?
and I think it's kind of funny because my wife and I often have arguments about like different colors and things like different paints
Oh,
because
Yeah.
around the house whenever we're looking for different paints and she'll tell me, oh, I think this could be periwinkle or this could be some other word that in my brain is completely
It's
made
purple.
up. Yeah, I have no idea. Like, I just, it's just not a thing that I understand. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what color I would ascribe for myself.
Aaron, what color would you ascribe to Dave?
yeah. I was just gonna say, honestly, Dave. I think,
Like a green maybe.
Ooh.
yeah, maybe a brighter forest green, not a
Like
dark
an algae
green.
green? Oh no, that's too dark.
No, well, it's because Dave has this like bubbly, gentle giant type atmosphere. So like maybe like
Yeah.
a tall tree throwing out leaves of green.
Oh, that could work.
Yeah.
That might be the most poetic thing Aaron has ever said.
Well, thank you.
I'm glad I could be here for this moment.
No, I love this. So when
Yeah.
if you were to pick a paint color for a room, do you think, well, this is a personal trait that I like, or this is a person who I am fond of, I would like this room to remind me of them? Is that something that you think about?
I wouldn't say so much with rooms. I think with rooms, obviously in my own bedroom, I would make it gray. My walls would be gray because
Sure.
that's the color I like. But then if it's like sort of a kitchen or like a bedroom, I think what am I doing in that room? Like for a kitchen, do I want to look at like how do I want to feel when I'm in the kitchen? Like what color would uplift me there? So ironically, I'd actually choose like a emerald green for a kitchen, which many people wouldn't really put in their kitchen. They get more sort of lighter, paler colors.
Yeah.
But that's what I would put in. So in fact, I think the kitchen would have a very Slytherin feel, with black
Yes.
caps,
Yeah.
dark walls, dark green walls, sort of,
I love
sort of
that.
like that.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, technically, even if we think about for all the flaws with the author, that put that aside. For all the flaws of that, even if we think about Harry Potter, they've kind of split houses into colors. They've given it characteristics. So I think it's something which subconsciously does happen. I mean, I wouldn't say there's like a science or research about it, but I do think that there is some pattern in it to some extent. I mean, the
Yeah.
red is associated with people being courageous. Dark green is associated with people being ambitious and cunning. Yellow, it's such a bright color. It's associated with people being helpful, or service oriented, So, and even like company logos, they all have a certain color scheme because it speaks to something in people. Even sort of games, I think color does affect us more than we understand, or more than we realize that it affects us. It's very subconscious.
Well,
So yeah.
and I've heard that as a theory around a lot of other things where we talk about like the what is it? The red blood, black bile, yellow bile.
Yeah.
There's
Oh yeah, the four.
the four humors. Yeah. Or in my case, the four Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Oh, they
That
all have
really
different
Equally.
that defines
colors.
me.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm a purple because I like technology. So I'm a Donatello.
Yeah, you see.
No.
There we go.
Yeah.
But
I feel like the background to this poem is infinitely better than the poem. So yeah.
well, Shiksha, we
Yeah.
are so glad to have been able to have you on the show today, even with the time difference and the the fact that it is late at night for you. And while I'm sure there are many more questions and rabbit holes and color theory things that we can pursue,
Definitely.
here at My Bad Poetry, we end each week with the words of a true poet. And we would be honored if you would be willing to share one of your poems, perhaps from Washed Away with us, to end our time.
Okay, sure. I'm going to read a prose poem called When I Think About Writing About Flowers.
Hmm.
The world is falling apart, tearing itself into pieces, then breaking those pieces into tinier pieces. It's chewing itself up, crunchingly, crunch, chew, spitting itself out, vomiting, convulsing. Should I be writing about flowers at this time? Should I be getting lost in a garden, in a beautiful world of growth and beauty when war rages around me? Should I write about flowers when the weeds of negativity, of malice, of suspicion, of anger, of desolation are fed by the never faltering winds of my pessimism, carried on the backs of minute ants, too small to comprehend that the salty sugar pieces that they carry will create a sculpture of paranoia, of nervous frustration in some abandoned corner of my mind? Should I be writing about flowers when the anxious caterpillars of my obsessions burrow into my hands, eating them from the inside out, leaving behind beautiful, wretched, blood butterflies, bared, naked for all to see, to marvel, to mock, my insanity, a kaleidoscope of my helpless, vulnerable, aggressive, disappointing scars? Should I really be writing about flowers? Thank you.
Wow. That is achingly beautiful.
It's a bit heavy, I'll
It,
admit.
it
Yeah.
is.
And there's a lot of insect imagery actually.
Wow.
The caterpillars, ants. So
Well, Shiksha, this has been incredible. And thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, and for your less than ideal poems.
yes, yes.
And your truly wonderful poems as well. Washed Away, a collection of fragments, is available on Amazon. Again, it is raw, it is powerful, but it is a great read. This has been My Bad Poetry.
Now go write some of your own bad poetry. Thank you.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah,
This was wonderful.
this was great. I'm just gonna stop the recording here. Rhyme free doesn't matter to me.